Hello guys, welcome back to my What If channel. Later on today, I will be uploading the What If Naruto was the reincarnation of death and was neglected series. So don't worry about that, but I'm going to be starting a new series today, which I announced yesterday, called One Man Apocalypse by SinbadThe3rd. I will put the link in the description below, but just know it's a crossover of Naruto and Darksiders. It's a crossover What If. And I might make a few mistakes as I have to read as I record it. So there might be a few reading mistakes, but I'm trying. So let's get right into it. Chapter 1, The End of an Era. Oh, I also forgot to announce that there will be 2 chapters in this episode, so anyways. Chapter 1, The End of an Era. The world as we know it is not the way it started very long ago. In the beginning there was nothing but the void, and out of the void came a creature of vast power who became known as the Creator. The Creator made 3 separate realms to keep balance between the various races that would inhabit them. While only 2 became occupied, the third was meant for them to come together and live in peace, but that's not how the word play out. World. I don't know. The first realm became known as Heaven and was home to creatures who became known as angels. Yet these angels were bred for war and battle instead of the angels the world knows to this day. They used technology to their advantage and used it well to make weapons and armor to help them with their everlasting wars with the beings of the realm that was the polar opposite. The second realm became known as Hell and was home to vile creatures that only lived to sow misery and destruction wherever they would dare to go. These became known as demons, and unlike the angels in the realm above, they used brute strength in greater numbers, as well as far more powerful magic than the angels were ever able to accomplish alone. The war between heaven and hell waged on through the ages, and as it did, the Creator was heartbroken that all he had tried to accomplish was being undone. Yet new hope bore fruit within him as he saw a new form of life be born from the constant fighting. Like a flower on the battlefield, these new creatures became known as humans, and while they weren't as strong or as intelligent as the angels or demons surrounding them, oh my gosh, my phone turned off. The Creator saw a bright future ahead of them, but the angels and demons saw them as a threat in the future. As I was saying, but the angels and demons saw them as a threat in the future and sought out to kill them before their lives had truly even begun. So by sacrificing his own energy, he created the Charred Council, which if you played the games, you would know about the Charred Council. Anyways, 3 rock-like entities with the power to mediate, the realms themselves. And so humanity was given their own realm, while the angels and demons were stuck to their own. And yet, during the war, some angels and demons had somehow found themselves attracted to one another and mated. The children born of their forbidden union became known as the Nephilim, and the power was great. They had the intelligence of the angels and the brute strength and magical know-how of the demons. Soon their numbers were great enough to conquer any one of the realms they chose, and yet they chose the realm of man to make their own. Soon the slaughter of humanity had begun, and there wasn't a force that could stop them. Yet, within the bloodshed of humanity, 4 of the Nephilim became distraught at what their kind... It turned off again, I gotta make sure it doesn't turn off. At what their kind was doing, and fled the battlefield and made their way towards the Charred Council for guidance. They were offered a chance to gain the power needed to fight off their own kind, but in doing so they would forever serve the Council. They accepted these terms and became known to all as the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Then they set out and slaughtered the rest of the Nephilim as ordered, thus saving the remainder of humanity from extinction, and sending a message to the angels and demons to remain within their realms until time where the 7 newly minted seals on the apocalypse were broken. Each seal would be Each seal would become broken. It keeps turning off. My bad. Each seal would become broken when the event engraved onto it as prophesied came to pass. Yet, with the power breeds corruption, and the charred council was no such. My bad. I keep messing it up. Anyways, yet with power breeds corruption, and the charred council was no exception to this fact. Soon they set things in motion so that they would be able to recreate the realms in their own way instead of the way it was meant to be. They started the process by first falsely summoning war, one of the Nephilim, to the realm of man by making him hear the call of the apocalypse, when in fact the seven seals had not been broken. The seventh seal had not been broken. Because of their actions, humanity died out completely without a trace. Hell won the war, and the soldiers of heaven were scattered into small pockets of resistance. Yet, the story of humanity did not stop there. War's brother, Death, set out to prove his brother's innocence, and set out to bring back mankind to freedom. In his travels, he learned about how his brother was falsely accused and was going to confront the charred council and the rest of the horsemen. And yet, before he could, he was forced to sacrifice himself in the ancient object known as the Well of Souls to bring them back. Yet, luck was on his side. Shortly after war, and with the help of an angel, broke the seventh seal and called forth death from the void that he had hurled himself into, for the sake of freeing his brother. Once called, the truth of what the council was known to all. I think the author meant to say the truth of what the council had did was known to all. But anyways, and instead of them fighting one another, they formed an alliance and attacked the council so that it would never happen again. The war was long and bloody. Sorry for the background noise. The war was long and bloody, and most of the alliance fell to the council's power. And yet, with the combined might of the horsemen, they were able to defeat them once and for all. But the damage had been done and had become too severe for them. As they lay dying from their wounds, they all smiled in the fact that at least the war has a chance to be reborn. Wait, hold on. It didn't pause. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, at least the world has a chance to be reborn. For within the war, the entirety of the race of angels and demons had been wiped out, and the world was without gods to help it along. So what would become of it? Would humanity's undoing? What? I don't know what that meant. What humanity's undoing? I don't know what that means. With their dying breath, they summoned forth the only living demon left alive, by the name of Vulgrim, who wasn't really evil, just a merchant of sorts that drove the hard bargain. They each handed him an item infused with their power, so that just maybe there will be a horseman in the future who can stop the world from destroying itself once more. War offered up his strength in the form of his gauntlets, with the power to control the elements themselves. Strife offered up his two pistols enchanted so that they would never run out of ammunition, and would be able to penetrate all armor that stood between the bullet and the flesh of its target. Fury offered up her whip sword, a versatile thing with many functions that the wielder would be able to use in all sorts of situations. And last but not least, Death offered up the most of the four. He left his horse to spare. For what is a horseman without a horse? As well as his faithful companion, his crow, Dusk. And lastly, he left his sights, infusing it with power to allow the wielder to summon forth the Reaper form, and lay waste to all enemies that were arrogant enough to attempt to fight death itself. Sorry for the noise again. You may not be able to hear me. I'll just pause it. Alright, I'm back. Anyways, after they all breathed their final breaths, their lifeless bodies fell forward, and from the body of death, his mask fell off his face away from his body. Vulgrim picked up the mask and made good on his word. As he formed a chamber where the bodies of the horsemen laid, and entombed each of them in their own with their own casket. Once they had been buried, the gifts they offered were placed on an altar in the center of the room, and were sealed away so that one day someone who was worthy of this power would take up the mantle of the horseman once more. Ages would pass before the tomb would ever be found, and the person worthy of such power would wield it. And that person would become known as the One-Man Apocalypse. Alright, on to chapter 2. Actually, I just checked. The chapters are actually longer than I expect. Anyways, chapter 2, Death's Revival. They say that death is the next stage of life. That it is a natural part of us in the universe as a whole. I can see that to some extent. I really do. If the death of a person were in fact one of natural causes, mine was not. Konoha 13 years after the Kyuubi's attack. It was raining heavily in Konoha. It was an angry rain, an angry storm. The heavens themselves lashed out. What? My bad. The heavens themselves lashed out. Yeah, he didn't. Anyways, I think they meant the heavens lashed out on the village with lightning and thunder to further show its displeasure of the events transpiring below. For within the village, in the place of where the execution square is located, a beaten, bloodied body with blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker marks was forced to his knees. In front of him was Sasuke Uchiha, wearing a sling on his arm for the arm that was broken by Naruto when they fought at the Valley of the End, and had a smirk on his face seeing the Jinchuriki before him within such position. Uzumaki Naruto, for your crimes against Konoha and being a threat to the village as a whole, I sentence you to death by Jitori. To the heart by Sasuke. Anything you would like to say before I give the order to kill you? Tsunade said, with Naruto looking up at her and scowled. Yeah, I do. But I doubt you would let me say them. Let me say them, because deep down you're an arrogant old hag, replied Naruto, before he was struck in the face by Tsunade, who had a look of utter fury on her face. You will respect me, brat, even before your death. I won't allow such disrespect, said Tsunade with a hint of anger in her voice. Respect? You demand respect, and yet you don't give respect where it's due. Such a hypocrite, of course. What would you expect from someone who won't get his hands dirty directly and spends their life wasting away drinking and gambling because of a simple few bad memories? The things that I had to face in my entire life dwarf any and all of your so-called horrible memories tenfold, and yet I still didn't break and become a sniveling, arrogant such as you have become, remarked Naruto before he was hit again by Tsunade with a much greater force. Enough! Kill him before he says something that displeases me even farther than he already has, replied Tsunade before giving the order for Sasuke to perform the hand size for the assassination jutsu to end his life. Behind and all around them, the crowd watched with anticipation, with glee, with joy. They were finally going to see the demon brat die. For them, it was a long time coming, and not a moment too soon in their minds. They had been calling for this day since the time of the Sandime Hokage, and only now, with the Goddime Hokage, did they get their greatest wish. Do you think this will end with me, Granny? Do you think this will end me, Granny? Well, you better pray that it does. You better pray to Kami and to the Shinigami that they can keep my spirit locked away. Because if they can't, I will do everything in my power to come back to Konoha and to see to it that this place burns to the ground with all the power of the rage in my soul, stated Naruto with Tsunade glancing at him with a look that showed a slight amount of fear. Unlike my Hokage predecessors, I believe when you die, you stay dead, and the spirits have no power over the world of the living, remarked Tsunade with Naruto smirking at her. Is that why you constantly fear your own death? You obviously do, since you're always hiding your true age behind that genjutsu, since your real appearance is ugly as sin, mocked Naruto with a chuckle despite the pain it caused him. Kill him, commended Tsunade coldly, and Sasuke finally finished charging his attack. He charged forward and piercing right through Naruto's chest, puncturing through the heart, making his death all the more certain. And to Naruto, slight horror, by killing him, Sasuke's eyes began to bleed slightly as the Sharingan morphed into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Don't feel too bad, dope, said Sasuke with an evil grin on his face, as he saw Naruto look at him in horror for that split second. With your death, you can honestly say that you did something worth something in life by helping me achieve the next level with my Sharingan. I win, dope. No, coughed out Naruto as he felt his life bleed out from him at a rapid pace. I did, since even though you had all the training while I had the bare minimum, I was able to beat you and drag your weak back to this village. I'm only in this position due to others torturing me to get me in this state. Even though you have the power you sought after, the memory of your defeat will forever haunt your mind until the day you die. And with this fact alone, I can die happily, knowing that it will cost you nothing but rage, since I am stronger, even in death. And with that being said, Naruto laughed in the last of his strength, and slipped into the darkness that was death. And so ended the tragic story of Naruto Uzumaki. But as I said before, death is the next stage of life. As the cold embrace of death enveloped him, Naruto thought about how the people of Konoha turned on him so easily on the Hokage's command. Not just the usual people either, but those Naruto knew like Anko, Ibiki, Iruka, the clan heads, the Jonin senseis, and the rookies' sons. What? And the rookies minus Hinata. 13 years ago, Minato Namikaze was the fourth Hokage, and at the time he had sacrificed his life to seal away the Kyuubi into his newborn son, Naruto. Before his death, he told his predecessor to treat Naruto as a hero for holding the powerful Nighttail's demon fox inside his little body. However, nobody listened to his pleas soon, Naruto became the most hated person in the entire village. The blonde child was treated as an outlet for many citizens and ninja who lost loved ones during the Kyuubi's destruction all those years ago. The citizens fully believed that Naruto was the demon in human form, while some ninja knew the truth about how seals work, yet they still used Naruto as a punching bag to let their anger out, to let their pain of losing their families and friends without caring about the truth. Naruto's life became a literal hell for him, as he is the target of the entire village's scorn. By the age of 4, he was kicked out of the orphanage he was staying in the middle of the winter, and he was forced to live in the cold streets for 2 years until the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, finally found him and gave him his own apartment. This is why Hiruzen's kind of my least favorite Hokage. He never even took care of Naruto, really. He just gave him a 4-year-old an apartment. I mean, I know there's rules, but he must wanted to been Hokage so bad if he was willing to not take care of a child just to be Hokage. So I kind of don't like him in that aspect. Anyways, not like it was anything good with his crumpled wallpaper. I'll start from the beginning, my bad. Hiruzen Sarutobi finally found him and gave him his own apartment. Not like it was anything good. With his crumbled wallpaper, weak and unstable floorboards, and ratty furniture. He was forced to buy instant ramen almost every meal, since shops wouldn't let him buy food, and if they did, they overpriced it, or it was mostly rotten. The same thing could be said about the clothing stores, who would only sell Naruto bright orange jumpsuit with the hopes of him dying while on a mission. As every other child celebrated their birthdays in cheer and joy, Naruto spent his in fear and anxiety. Every year on the 10th of October, everyone would celebrate the day that Minato Namikaze defeated the Ninetales. It was also the day where a majority of villagers would get drunk and become braver on fighting and causing untold pain to Naruto. Whenever they find him, they beat him, cut him, burnt him, choked him, electrocuted him, drowned him, and even buried him alive on a few cases. Only at that moment Only at that moment when villagers were about to finish the job, did the Anbu assigned to protect them intervene on his behalf. They would drop Naruto off to the hospital, which was full of doctors and nurses who weren't afraid to drug him in his sleep. Funny how the cause of his suffering was the reason he was still alive, since Kibi's chakra was the only thing that healed Naruto's wounds and eliminated all the deadly toxins that may find themselves in his veins. Even through all the years of literal torture, Naruto never broke from it. He fought on. He continued his dream on becoming Hokage and hopefully gaining the respect of the entire elite village. When Naruto found out about the Kyuubi being sealed inside his body, he didn't break. When Naruto's childhood crush continued to reject his confessions and even beat him for them, he didn't break. When Naruto's sensei ignored him in favor of training the arrogant Uchiha, he didn't break. When everybody ridiculed Naruto and mocked him for having no chance against the fight in Neji in the Chunin exams, he didn't break. His will never broke. Even after all the many hardships he has gone through in his life, not until Sasuke's retrieval mission did his will finally snap. Sasuke Uchiha left the village in favor of going to Orochimaru, who promised the young adventurer power that would allow him to kill his older brother Itachi and avenge his fallen clan. Sasuke didn't even think twice when he left and ran towards the Rice Country for a chance of power. The recently named 5th Hokage, Tsunade Senju, sent a team of Genin and one Chunin to chase after the rogue Uchiha and bring him back to the village. The team consisted of Neji Hyuga, Choji Akamichi, Kiba Inazuka, and finally, Naruto Uzumaki. They had all met different types of resistance in the form of the Sound Four, but they had all succeeded in the end. And at the end of it all, Naruto was the only one who made it this fight against Sasuke. Valley of the End. Chidori! Warred Sasuke, who was currently in the second level of his crush mark, which Orochimaru had kindly given to him during the second portion of the Chunin exams. Sasuke's skin was now dark gray, and his hair was now longer, with a new shade of dark blue added to it. Claw-shaped wings struck out of his back and was helping him to fly towards Naruto. With his crisp-marked enhanced Chidori, he was poised to strike through Naruto's chest. Rasengan! Roared Naruto in his one-tailed state. His once blue eyes were now blood red, with fox-like slits for his pupils. His whisker marks have become darker, with his canines have grown slightly larger and sharper. Surrounding the blonde is a cloak of demon red chakra, and that has taken the shape of a fox. A single tail of chakra swings as Naruto leaps at Sasuke with his Kyuubi enhanced Rasengan. Both jutsus clash in the center between the large statues, and a few moments later, their chakras surrounded each other and joined together to form a black dome that suddenly explodes in a blinding white light. In the light, Naruto and Sasuke were still competing for dominance over each other. They both pulled back their respective arms with deadly A-rank jutsus on one hand for one last strike against one another. Sasuke aimed towards Naruto's chest, or more importantly, his heart. Naruto, on the other hand, wondered if he should go for Sasuke's chest or forehead, deciding to finish the fight in one go. Naruto throws his Rasengan towards Sasuke's chest. Sasuke's Chidori barely scraped off Naruto's clothes before the blind leads his body away from the lightning hand. While Sasuke's jutsu missed, Naruto's hits dead on into the Uchiha's chest. Sasuke screamed in pain as the spinning ball of chakra grinds into his chest violently. With one last battle cry, Naruto pushed harder, and launches Sasuke into the statue leg of his ancestor, Madara Uchiha. Naruto waited for Sasuke to get back up and continued their fight with all of his chakra and energy spent. Sasuke isn't getting back up. Realizing that the fight is over, Naruto pulls his head back and roars into the sky with enough force to shake the very ground that he is standing on. In Naruto's fit of excitement, he doesn't notice an extra tail of chakra swinging alongside his other one. What else he doesn't realize is that not only is everyone in a 50-kilometer radius feeling his power, but so is another being. One that has waited countless centuries for a soul like his to arise. The Leaf, prison. Deep underground in the Leaf village, where only the worst of the worst are held prisoner, and this familiar blonde 13-year-old is currently shirtless with only a piece of clothing he has to be a pair of tattered orange pants. He has chains wrapped around his waist and is hanging off of them. With no shirt, there's nothing to hide the many deep scars that adorn his skin and flesh. The worst one being the fist-sized scar that is near his heart. Shizune, Kakashi, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Sasuke, Ino, Shoji, Yugao, Gemma, Iruka, Ayame, Teiuchi, Uncle, Konoha. He mutters to himself while thinking about all the people who he hopes to die a painful death. Just a day ago, he had returned to the village with Sasuke with him. He expected some sort of greeting or celebration for bringing back Sasuke. After all, he is the last Uchiha, after all. Other than Itachi, of course. What he hadn't expected was to be immobilized quickly and knocked out by the Anbu. Early on, he had found himself in his current position with no shirt, no headband, or the necklace that he won off of Tsunade. That's when Jiraiya and Tsunade decided to grace him with their presence, and that is also when he found out about everything. They never cared for him. They were in reality using him. Turns out that both Sannin were his godparents, who were supposed to take care of him if something happened to his father or mother. That didn't happen because Jiraiya thought of Minato as a son, while Tsunade thought of Kushina as a daughter. So when they both died to protect their child that held the cause of their deaths, the two Sannin didn't see a reason for taking care of him. It went well since Hiruzen wanted a way to use him as a weapon for them to use. In case of another village attacking their weakened state. During the weakened state, for 13 years, Naruto believed in everything the old man said, how he should learn to forgive and forget, how he should try his best to become Hokage while all laughing at the thought of having him wrapped around their fingers just like an obedient puppy. Tsunade told him of how she told everyone of his status of it as a Jinchuriki, and like she expected, the populace was on their feet, demanding for his death, especially after bringing back the Rogue Uchiha in his beaten state, and how she was going to grant their wish in an attempt to allow Sasuke to gain more power from his death. She even allowed his former friends to visit him in his cell to do as they pleased towards him. They weren't too happy to see him, to say the least. They weren't too happy to see. Oh, I already said that. They all looked at him with such hate that Naruto was wondering if they even thought for 1 second that he was even their friend. They mocked him, spat on him, and even the fewer brave ones, like Kiba, intended to throw their lunch or weapons his way. Not like the ambush guards even cared. Even his supposed sensei came to visit him, but all he did was mock him. And what made it worse is that he did it without even looking away from his Ichibook. What truly hurt is how Jiraiya laughed at his idea to become Hokage and gain knowledge meant for who he is. To make it worse, he summoned the old toad Pa and asked him to wipe Naruto's name off the contract. The toad didn't even think twice when he did it, making the pain all the more intense. Now Naruto, he waits. Not my bad. Now he waits for his coming future. Tsunade has been in a cheerful mood, so she was happy enough to explain her plans for Naruto. Her great yet sickening plan was to have Sasuke execute him so as to gain the Mangekyo Sharingan. With that, she believed that they would become the most powerful village for generations to come. To soften him up for Sasuke, they gave him to Anko, who Naruto had thought would be on his side since she knew that she's ostracized by the village as well because of the curse mark that Orochimaru gave her. My bad for reading that wrong. He was wrong in this case, since Anko found sick joy in burning and whipping the blonde turkey with the best of her abilities. It turned out by doing so, she was gaining respect of her fellow citizens in the village and was willing to make one in a similar position suffer just to make her own life a little easier. With that future to come, and Anko's daily tortures, the Leaf Village finally did the impossible. They broke Naruto Uzumaki's will. Neji, Lee, Guy, Shino, Kurenai, Hin, I love you. Naruto's cold, dead blue eyes gained a slight spark to them as a memory resurfaced. Just a few hours ago, the very first person, let alone a girl, told him that she loved him. Of course, he shouldn't have believed her, but the way she said it with so much conviction, there was no way he could deny the truth in her words. To further prove her declaration, she even kissed him, the demon child that none love. Hinata, Naruto said as he felt the darkness completely consume him. Hinata, said Naruto as he felt the darkness completely consume him, and as the memories ended. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? Said a voice that caused Naruto to open his eyes and see that he was floating in an endless void of darkness. He wasn't sure where the heck he was, since there was nothing to gain any form of insight of where he could possibly be. Who's there? Shouted Naruto as he heard his voice echo off into the distance. And out of the distance came a figure unlike any he had ever seen. It was a demonic-looking skeleton with horns, and had rings on each of his fingers, and a backpack on his back, as well as a large belt that kept his tattered pants from falling off of him. Who are you? I've gone by many names throughout history, boy, said the creature. In this age, I'm simply known as the Shinigami. So you are the Shinigami, Naruto said. You are the one responsible for all that has befallen me. That title was given me by the humans who summoned me through means that I had, at that point of time, unheard of. My real name is Vulgrim, and unlike what the legends say about me, I have no true power over life and death, as people have said I do over the years. I'm nothing more than a merchant of death that trades in souls. If that is true, then why did you steal the QB within me? As I said, I deal in souls. Many a men have summoned me throughout time to barter their souls for various things. If it's within my within my power, to do so, I grant them whatever it is they desire, and collect upon their soul when the time is right. So where am I going to go since I'm dead? Asked Naruto with a sigh. To hell, where everyone from my village said I belong? Or maybe Kami has seen fit to cut me a break and send me to heaven, since my life has been nothing short of a living hell, since the day I was born. You were wrong about many things, my young soul, chuckled Vulgrim as he clicked the fingers and smiled. As he smiled, the spiritual plane is in an order of disarray, and it has been so for many years. How is this so? Asked Naruto in shock. Where are the gods to keep things in order as in their jobs? There are no gods in the world, said Vulgrim. They died in the war of Armageddon long ago, and there has been none since. So how is there balance of any sort if there are no gods to keep it? Is there a heaven or a hell to speak of? There's both a heaven as well as a hell, and Kami does exist, but he's no god. But only the pure souls to ever exist that ascended to heaven and became a beacon of sorts for spiritual plane. And that became a beacon of sorts for those with souls not fully corrupted by sins. Those souls take the journey and find heaven on their own, while those who can't feel the beacon of heaven endlessly roam the spiritual planes until the end of times. For while there is a hell, no one can enter it. And why can't anyone enter hell? I'm pretty sure that there are souls that are pure evil that would make a beacon to attract dark souls like them. Well, that may be true, said Vulgrim as he thought about it. There's no one to process the souls themselves and send them to the proper area of hell with it that they shall remain. So if I'm not going to neither heaven or hell, asked Naruto in curiosity on where this conversation was going, why are you here in the first place? Oh wait, no, I read that wrong. I read it correctly. It doesn't sound as the way it's supposed to sound. Anyways, why are you here in the first place? Since I died by Chidori to the heart, and no one summoned you with a jutsu. I have come to make you an offer that I highly doubt no one such as you will refuse. For the world needs someone like you to regain the balance it once had. What exactly do you mean by someone like me? I have searched for a soul like yours for many years. A tormented soul that would know the true feeling of death itself, since you have felt this cold embrace more times than any human has or ever will in their lifetime. You set this up in some way? Growled Naruto in anger. You eagerly helped my father steal the demon within me, knowing full well that I would become hated by many and suffer as I have done all my life, so I would become this soul you wanted. And for what? The world as we know it is not the way it started very long ago. In the beginning there was nothing but the void. And out came the void, a creature of vast power that became known as the Creator. The Creator made 3 separate realms to keep balance between the various races that would inhabit them. While only 2 became occupied, the third was meant for them to come together and live in peace, but that's not how the world played out. Why are you telling me this? Asked Naruto in anger, as his anger never left him, since he didn't like to think that his life had just been one big scheme for a demonic entity. All in good time, young soul. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. The first realm became known as heaven and was the home to creatures that became known as angels. Yet these angels were bred for war and battle instead of the angels the world believes they are like in this modern day. They used their technology far beyond your own to their advantage and used it well to make weapons and armor to help them with their everlasting war with the beings of the realms that was their polar opposite. Polar opposite. And by polar opposite, you mean hell, right? Yes, I do. Now stop. Now stop interrupting me so that I may finish the story. The second realm became known as hell. It was home to vile creatures that only lived to sow misery and destruction wherever they would dare go. These became known as demons, and unlike angels in the realm above, they used brute strength in greater numbers, as well as far more powerful magic than the angels were ever able to accomplish alone. The war between heaven and hell waged on through the ages, and as it did, the Creator was heartbroken that all he had tried to accomplish was being undone. Yet, new hope bore fruit within him as he saw the new form of life born born from the constant fighting, like a flower on the battlefield. These new creatures became known as humans, and while they weren't as strong or as intelligent as the demons or angels surrounding them, the Creator saw a bright future ahead of them. But the angels and demons saw them as a threat in the distant future and sought out to kill them. I keep losing where I'm reading at. Sought out to kill them before their life had truly even begun. So by sacrificing his own life energy, he made the Charred Council three rock-like entities with the power to mediate the realms themselves, and so found themselves. Wait, what? My bad, guys. The realms themselves. And so humanity was given their own realm, while the angels and demons stuck to their own. Yet, during the war, some angels and demons had somehow found themselves attracted to one another and mated. The children born of the forbidden union became known as the Nephilim, and their power was great. They had the intelligence of the angels and the brute strength and magical know-how of the demons. Soon, their numbers weren't great enough to conquer anyone of the realms they chose, and yet they chose the realm of man to make their own. Soon, the slaughter of humanity has begun, and there wasn't a force that could stop them. Yet within the bloodshed of humanity, four of the Nephilim became distraught at what their own kind was doing, and fled the battlefield to make their way towards the Charred Council for guidance. They were offered the chance to gain the power needed to fight off their own kind, but in doing so, they would forever serve the council. They accepted these terms and became known as the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Then they then set out and slaughtered the rest of the Nephilim as ordered, thus saving the remainder of humanity from extinction, and sending a message to the angels and demons to remain within their own realms, until the time where the seven new minted cells of the apocalypse were broken. Each seal would become broken when the event engraved onto it, as prophesied, came to pass. So, where are these Nephilim you speak of? Since the world is still here, and the apocalypse hasn't happened, my bad. That is where you are wrong. The apocalypse has already happened many years ago. Way before, with power breeds corruption, and the Charred Council was no exception to this fact. They soon set things in motion so that they would be able to recreate the realms in their own way instead of the way it was meant to be. They started the process by first falsely summoning war to the realm of man by making him hear the call of the apocalypse, when in fact the seventh seal had not been broken. Because of their actions, humanity died out completely without a trace, and for hell won the war, and the soldiers of heaven were scattered in small pockets of resistance. Yet the story of humanity did not stop there, for War's brother Death set out to prove his brother's innocence, and set out to bring back mankind to free him. In his travels, he learned about how his brother was falsely accused and was going to confront the Charred Council and the rest of the horsemen. With the rest of the horsemen, my bad. And yet, before he could, he was forced to sacrifice himself and the ancient object known as the Well of Souls to bring them back. Yet, luck was on his side, for shortly afterwards, with the with the help of an angel, broke the seventh seal and called forth death from the void that he had hurled himself into, all for the sake of freeing his brother. Once called, the truth of what the council had done was known to all, and instead of them fighting one another, they formed an alliance and attacked the council so that would never happen again. The war was long and bloody, and most of the alliance fell to the council's power, and yet, with the combined might of the horsemen, they were able to defeat them once and for all. But the damage had already been done, and had become too severe, and the demons had become too severe for them. As they lay dying from the wounds, they smiled at the fact that at least the world had a chance to become reborn. For within the war, the entirety of the race of the angels and the demons had been wiped out, and the world was just without God so long. With their dying breath, they summoned me to do one thing for them. They each handed me an item infused with their power so that just maybe there would be a horseman in the future who could stop the world from destroying itself once more. But what does this story have to do with me in any way? I have searched for long for a soul like your own to pass the mantle of a horseman, one of the four, and if I was correct in my actions, you will become the new horseman of death. And that makes you what I think. And what makes you think that I would become a pawn in your sick game? I thought for certain that you wouldn't be able to pass up a chance at revenge for the villagers. At revenge for the actions of the villagers, chuckled Vulgrim. How would it be possible for me to take revenge against them if I'm dead? Asked Naruto, who at this point not truly buying whatever Vulgrim was selling him. When the seals of the apocalypse were intact, the horsemen were forbidden from entering the realm of men due to the barrier that could only be breached once they were broken. The seals have not been broken for a long time, and there are no makers to forge new ones. So the barrier that would hinder you has never been resurrected. Alright, said Naruto, who now understood that with this promised power, he would be able to bring balance to the world with the death of his old village. You sold me, so what happens now? Will you give me the power that you mentioned? Oh no, laughed Vulgrim, as he pointed towards Naruto towards the door that had just materialized behind him. I can only send you through the doorway. It is up to you to pass the test of the horseman and claim the power for your own. But as I said before, you are the perfect spirit to embody the horseman of death, and that's why I'm offering you this chance in the first place. Now good luck, young spirit, and may our paths cross once more in the future. Vulgrim then disappeared, as if he had never been there to begin with. He walked up towards them and pushed it inwards, with all his strength, since the doors weighed a ton each. Once he did, he walked in, and the door slammed shut behind him. Inside was a large room with four statues that perfectly resembled the horsemen that had perished long ago, down to the finer detail. And in front of them, with the coffins that held their deceased bodies. In the opposite corner of the room, there was a shrine that contained various weapons, unlike he had ever seen in his lifetime. Unsure on what to do here, he walked towards the weapons on the opposite side of the room, but he only made it halfway to his destination before he was stopped in his tracks by a set of rooms that appeared below him, the force of which caused him to fall to the ground in pain as the power beyond his own description entered him and prodded through his memories as well as his very soul. The pain was immense, and he felt as if it was as if his very being was on fire. But shortly after the pain started, he felt a cooling sensation start to creep up from his feet until it reached his head. He looked at himself and saw that his spirit had solidified into his flesh and a blood body. He flexed his muscles and felt the raw power that had just become his own. His skin had become far paler than he wanted, but he was just happy to have a body once more. "You have passed our test, young horseman," said a voice that soon materialized into the spirit of death. Alongside him were the spirits of war, strife, and fury. Like his fellow horsemen, Death is of a race known as the Nephilim, among the most powerful beings in the universe. When mankind was made, when mankind was given the prize of Eden, Absalom, the leader of the Nephilim, led his armies against heaven and hell in an attempt to steal it back. For this crime, the Triad Council condemned the Nephilim to destruction. The four horsemen of the apocalypse granted a reprieve from this fate on the condition that they aid the council's victory over their kin. The horsemen accepted, but it was Death who bore the greatest burden of guilt for the near extinction of his race, donning his iconic mask to represent his role as executioner on the day he slaughtered his brethren. He has not removed it since. Whispered an echoing voice from out of the blue. "You are the perfect candidate to embody the mantle of death," said Death. "For you have tasted death itself far more than any other human has ever done in their lifetime. Not even torture victims have gone through what you have, as much as you have. And it is for this reason that I grant you my power, as well as my title. Let the world fear the name of Death, as they have in the past once more." And as he said that, Naruto felt his hand surge with power and solidifies a sharp clawed gauntlet, as well as two scythes, once wielded by Death itself, flying forward and attached themselves onto his belt. "You have known fury for so long against those who would hurt an innocent soul for their own sinful gain." "You have known fury for so long against those who would hurt an innocent soul for their own sinful gain are worthy of my power. Until the time where a perfect candidate for the Horseman of Fury can be found," said Fury as her blade whipped itself around his waist like a belt. "Now go forth and seek out the one of becoming the Horseman of Fury. You have known great strife after learning the truth behind the lies that have been told to you for your entire life," said Strife as his twin pistols, Mercy and Redemption, fastened themselves to Naruto's belt and their new gun holsters that materialized to hold them. "Until the time when you find the perfect candidate of strife, wield my weapons as my power, as well as my power. Now go forth and seek out the one worthy of becoming the Horseman of Strife. You have known war at such an early age to war, but I have never been in a war in my life," Naruto said as he was confused about that. "War takes on many forms," explained War, "and you have been in a war of survival since the day you were born. Against all odds, you have survived to continue the fight. Until the time where the perfect candidate of war appears, wield my power and turn the tides of war against those who seek control of the world itself." And on Naruto's underhand appeared one of War's gauntlets. It was far too big, so it shrunk to the point that it looked like a metallic sleeve to Naruto that covered up his arm to his elbow. And with their power and weapons passed down to the newest horsemen, the spirits of the former ones were finally at peace and faded from existence. Naruto felt the power within himself surge once more as it did. His body became clothed in a jet black cowl that he used to cover himself up his now gray hair with covered his gray hair with jet black tips, as well as his shoulders, with the rest becoming encased in a gray skin tight muscle tee that showed off his newfound muscular body. We have work to do, and with that, a portal opened and they rode through it to begin resetting the world. 3 years later. In the last 3 years, Naruto had been busy in his endeavors, being the only thing both angelic as well as demons origin, Vulgrim excluded, with the powers to mold heaven and hell, since there's no countering force to stop them. Him made it all the more simpler to forge heaven and hell into an appropriate setting. Heaven was formed into a corridor. Bless you. Sorry about that. Anyways. Heaven was formed into a corridor of long hallways that held doors into different rooms, each labeled with a name of the one who would come to inhabit it in the future. Within each room was a blank space that would solidified into whatever it was that the owners of said rooms' greatest deciders were for all eternity. And if said person was tired of the paradise, they could leave the room anytime and hang out in the many gathering points, or even join up and become one of heaven's angels, the protectors of the realm. Once the realm was formed into a heaven worthy of the good souls, Naruto helped enhance the order of Kami himself, sent out to summon forth the souls worthy of it. Out of the many that arrived, he chose a few who wanted to help him and had them do the paperwork to allow the souls in. Said souls in. For even in heaven, people needed guides so as to understand where things were located. Hell was an entirely different matter, since Naruto had to make sure that those sent there suffered for all eternity until the last shred of their spirit was crushed. They would become a mindless demon that would torment the future souls that would come to inhabit the realm after them. But to make it extraordinarily cruel for the damned souls, there was only one line to get into hell, and once in the line, you were stuck in it until processed by the single gatekeeper that filed the paperwork for all the damned souls for all eternity. The name of this soul, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Naruto had found it quite hilarious as it was the perfect form of poetic justice to do this to Sarutobi. He had claimed the soul from Vulgrim himself, who had also laughed at Sarutobi's newest hell, and didn't even want to trade for it. At first, Hiruzen didn't understand why he was forced to do this, but then Naruto revealed his face as well as his newest title and saw the color wash away from his face entirely. He had tried to attack Naruto, but the change forged from the darkest pits of hell sprung from the ground and held him in place. They forced him to sit behind a desk. And behind the desk he was assigned to and began the never-ending stacks of paperwork alone. From Naruto's account, it took about 400 to 600 years to become processed into hell. Then the real torture began. Naruto had found many souls that were pitch black, who he knew that hell would seem like heaven to them, and offered them a position of power within hell itself as demons to torture souls for eternity. They accepted this amazing offer without hesitation, and while Naruto himself didn't like those types of people, they still had their uses in hell. He even came upon the soul of Zabuza Momoshi and offered him a spot as overseer in hell as well, which he took with a hearty laugh. And for the past 3 years, he has been right at home torturing the damned souls of hell with his most demented methods. What? With his most demented of methods, my bad. Naruto also found a few souls with excellent weapons smithing skills in both heaven as well as hell to forge copies of the weapons that he knew he would have to give up once the other horsemen were located. And while they weren't as powerful as the originals, they would suffice, my bad, quite well. He had traveled to the now destroyed land of the dead, and it was here where he had found the remains of a tool wielded by death long ago called interdiction, which allowed him to command the 3 separate souls. And with the help of the smiths in heaven and hell, they were able to fix it so that he could use it once more. And with the first thing he did with it was call upon the spirits of the Kyuubi itself that had perished in his body. But the rest of it had remained in his father's soul, now wielding the power of the Kyuubi once more. And now he was here in his clan's homeland known as Whirlpool. He felt the souls of his clan gathering towards him, since in the desire for revenge, they were tethered to this land and could not move on to the next life. Naruto made a deal with Vulgrim to never rip the power out of him like he did before. For an amulet. Hold on, I lost my spot. I lost what I was reading at. For an amulet that was capable of wielding the souls of those who perished near him. My bad. For his master plan was to revive his fallen clan as the newest generation of the Nephilim, so as to keep the peace up in the world. But for every soul he revived, one soul must be used to harvest his life force to revive another soul. So that's why he was here, to gather up his clan souls, so that once he had enough, he can bring them back to life once more. Once he had told them of the plan, they surged forward and entered the amulet he held in his hands. With this done, Naruto then mounted his horse once more and made way to Suna, for he had felt a disturbance there that needed to be corrected, and a friend that most likely needed to be saved. Konoha, my bad. Hinata sat in her room, tears filled her eyes. She wanted to die. She wanted to take a kunai and slice herself across the neck to defy the life that awaited her with Uchiha Sasuke. And all the days to pick for her. My bad. And all the days to pick for her forced wedding, it had to be on the 3rd anniversary of her true love's death. Tsunade felt it would be perfect for Sasuke to get married on this day. And to Hinata of all people, since the Hokage knew how the girl felt about Naruto, like everyone else in the village did. It was to dishonor Naruto, hurt Hinata, and basically make Sasuke happy so he would keep his public support in her favor, and all wrapped around in one neat little package. Sasuke was only interested in her because she was the strong Kunoichi, since Hinata had trained constantly after Naruto's death and plowed through many Hyuga and the spars given to break her down. And Sasuke knew that she loved Naruto and wanted to stick into him, but claiming the one girl that loved him. I could do it, my bad. Just to see the look on their faces, on my father's face, on Sasuke's face, on Tsunade and Jiraiya's faces. But that would be the easy way out, the coward's way out, their way out of things. Besides, I doubt Sasuke would weep tears at my death and just call me weak like Naruto for doing it, thought Hinata as she looked at the wedding dress she was given earlier to wear to tailor it for her, so that when Sasuke returned from his mission in Suna, they would be wed, and hated the idea of wearing it for the Uchiha. There was only one man she would wear it for, and he was no longer among the living. It wasn't long before a group of female branch members entered her room to prepare Hinata for the wedding of Sasuke in the near future. However, from what the branch family members saw from the look of the Hyuga's woman's face, they thought that they would think, my bad, she was getting ready for her funeral and burying someone she loved. In a sense, Hinata was doing just that. You look wonderful, Hinata-sama. A goddess fit for anyone, Neji said, entering the room to see Hinata in her attire. There's only one man I want to be with, and he's not here, Hinata said while looking at the mirror. We've been over this. Your infatuation with the demonic monster has to end before the wedding starts. The only reason Hokage-sama hasn't ordered Yamanaka Inoichi to simply remove your memory of him is because Sasuke wishes you to keep those memories. And I think that your dislike of Sasuke of Uchiha has been misplaced. Stated Neji with Hinata suddenly turning her head and glaring at him. I know why the Uchiha wishes me to keep those memories of Naruto. And it's hardly out of the goodness of his heart, or even his soul, since he's lacking in one. Sasuke wants to have a victory over Naruto in every way. He wants me to know that by using his body, my body, he'll have it instead of the one man worthy of being my husband. Hinata stated coldly with Neji. I keep saying Naruto. Anyways, with Neji frowning at her. I warn you, Hinata-sama. This will not be tolerated forever. Do not push it, Neji told her before leaving the room. Naruto-kun. I won't be saying that again. If you can hear me on the other side, know that my mind, body, and soul will always be there for you, no matter what they do, thought Hinata, as she looked herself in the mirror, and for the briefest of moments, she pictured the wedding that she wanted to have with Naruto. And for that brief moment, Hinata smiled while holding onto that moment, with all the strength her soul could muster. She was going to need it, and in her grief, she failed to notice a raven fly by from the windowsill to return to its master. I apologize for having to repeat some of the first chapter, but Vulgrim had to say the story. I also apologize for making some mistakes and stumbling over my words. I'm going to be making a new what if in a couple of hours, so I will see you guys later.